There is a billionaire living in your city right now, not in a penthouse with a publicist and a Forbes cover, in a regular house, driving a regular car, running a business you have probably never thought twice about. A pipeline company, a chain of auto dealerships, a regional distribution network, a portable sink manufacturer. You have never heard of them. That is not an accident. That is the strategy. Princeton economist Owen Zidar calls them everywhere millionaires, private business owners who have built extraordinary wealth operating entirely under the radar in industries that generate no headlines, no venture capital hype, and no Silicon Valley mythology. And according to his research, they vastly outnumber the famous kind. For every public company CEO with a net worth above 10 million, there are roughly 1,000 private business owners at the same level. The wealth hiding in plain sight across ordinary American industries dwarfs what most people imagine when they picture the ultra-rich. The question worth asking is not just how they got there, it is why nobody talks about them, and what that silence is costing everyone who has been chasing the wrong model. To understand the everywhere millionaire phenomenon, you first have to understand where wealth actually comes from, because most people have the wrong mental model. The dominant cultural story about building wealth goes roughly like this: get a prestigious degree, climb the corporate ladder at a recognizable company, get promoted into a high salary, invest in index funds, retire comfortably. It is a fine path. It is also nearly impossible to get extremely wealthy on it, because every step of the way you are trading your time for someone else's ceiling. The data tells a different story. According to Zidar's research, the primary driver of wealth at the top of the distribution is not salary. It is equity, specifically ownership stakes in privately held businesses, not stock options at a public company, not a 401k. Actual ownership of a business that generates cash, appreciates in value, and can eventually be sold, and the businesses generating that wealth are not the ones getting the coverage. Manufacturing drives almost half of all corporate profits in the U.S. economy, but it makes up a small fraction of millionaire-owned private businesses. Instead, the wealth concentrates in professional services, construction, finance, healthcare, and distribution, industries that are unglamorous, operationally intensive, and almost completely ignored by business media. Dentists alone generate more total revenue than every professional sports team in America combined. The NFL, the NBA, MLB, all of their revenue put together is smaller than what American dentists bring in annually. Nobody is writing breathless profiles about dental practice owners, and yet, by the numbers, that industry is producing more wealth than the ones dominating every business headline. The clearest illustration of how this actually works in practice is Rich Kinder, a billionaire based in Houston who most people outside of Texas have never heard of, and who seems entirely comfortable with that fact. Kinder built his fortune not by inventing something new or riding a technology wave, but by buying what he describes as unglamorous assets, pipelines, and running them with disciplined efficiency over decades. After leaving Enron, where he had run pipeline operations, he bought those same pipeline assets that the company had dismissed as relics of the old economy. He started with a company worth around $300 million and 175 employees. He understood the assets deeply, ran them tightly, used the company's growing stock price to make further acquisitions, and kept doing that for nearly 30 years. Kinder Morgan is now one of the largest pipeline companies in North America. The business never got exciting. It never needed to. Pipelines move energy. Energy demand is stable and largely inelastic. The revenue is predictable, the returns compound quietly over time, and the person who built it never had to become a public figure to do it. What Kinder identified was not a trend or a disruption, it was a durable need, energy infrastructure, combined with the operational discipline to run it better than most people were bothering to. That combination, applied consistently over a long enough time horizon, turns unglamorous into generational. Before we go further, if this kind of analysis on how real wealth actually gets built outside the headlines is what you are here for, subscribe right now. We cover the economic forces most business media ignores every week. The everywhere millionaire model has a more accessible version too, one that does not require starting with a $300 million asset base. It is called entrepreneurship through acquisition, and it is quietly gaining traction among people who want the wealth-building power of business ownership without the existential risk of building from zero. The logic is straightforward. Instead of launching a startup, which requires finding product-market fit, building from nothing, and surviving years of zero revenue, you buy a business that already works. Established customers, proven revenue, an operational model that someone else spent years refining. You take that foundation and bring whatever skills you have, finance, marketing, operations, sales, to push it to the next level. Ray and Dana Cherry are a useful example. Both had successful corporate careers, finance and marketing respectively. They left those careers to purchase Monsum Portable Sinks, a niche manufacturing business in the San Francisco Bay Area that had been solving hygiene and sanitation problems for food service operators for nearly 30 years and had served over 11,000 customers. Not glamorous, not viral, entirely real. Their criteria were deliberate: consistent profitability, a product with genuine utility, a business close enough to their existing skills that they could learn it quickly, and a clear path to growth. They were not looking for excitement, they were looking for a foundation. What makes this model particularly relevant right now is timing. The United States is in the early stages of a massive small business ownership transition. Baby boomer business owners are retiring at scale, and a significant portion of them have no succession plan. Businesses that took 30 or 40 years to build are looking for buyers. The inventory of established, profitable, boring businesses available for acquisition has rarely been larger, and most people chasing startup dreams do not even know the market exists. There is a mindset shift underneath all of this that is worth naming directly, because it is the thing that separates the people who build this kind of wealth from the people who keep waiting for the right idea. The everywhere millionaire is not chasing novelty. They are not waiting for a disruption to ride or a technology wave to catch. They are asking a different question entirely. What does the world reliably need? Where is that need being met by a business I can understand? And can I run that business better than it is currently being run? Pipelines move energy. Dental practices fix teeth. Portable sinks solve sanitation problems at events. None of these businesses will ever be featured in a TED Talk. All of them generate more durable, predictable cash flow than most startups will ever see. Rich Kinder's advice to anyone who wants to build real wealth through ownership without the celebrity spotlight is almost aggressively simple. Pay attention to what you are doing, do not get carried away with appearances, and never invest in something you do not understand. The businesses that destroyed people who followed him into deals were almost always the ones where the buyer was relying on someone else's conviction rather than their own understanding. That last part is the part worth sitting with. The everywhere millionaire model does not require genius. It does not require a network of venture capitalists or a revolutionary idea. It requires understanding a business deeply enough to run it well, and having the patience to let compounding do its work over a long enough time horizon. The irony is that this model has been hiding in plain sight the entire time. The wealth it produces shows up in the data. Zidar's research makes that unmistakably clear. But it does not show up in the cultural narrative about success because it generates no spectacle, no funding rounds, no product launches, no IPO, just a business owner, an unglamorous industry, and decades of quiet execution. The formula has not changed. Most people are just looking somewhere else for it. Thanks for watching. If this shifted how you think about where real wealth actually gets built, subscribe so you do not miss what comes next.